Good day and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. In this episode of the ongoing coverage taking place inside of the former state of Ethiopia, we continue our coverage on that very uncivil war that is taking place in that former nation state. So again, where does the conflict sit? As of late yesterday, reports were starting to trickle in that Tigrayan Defense Forces had managed to breach the defensive works around Dese and actually penetrate into the city itself. So again, we're hearing mixed reports on that. Again, it would appear that the city has not as yet completely capitulated and or fallen to the Tigrayan Defense Forces. Now, with that being said, there are significant elements of the TDF north of the city and continue to approach and probe the city. And could we see Dese fall within the next several hours, several days, possibly? We also continue to hear about pushes towards Kombolcha as well. And again, as I talked about in prior videos, the seizure of one or both of these towns would be of a significant both political and strategic defeat for the federal forces, for the Abiy loyalists, for the Amhara regional paramilitary units. And it would be something that, quite frankly, I am unsure of whether they would in fact be able to recover, especially if we find that the TDF is able to capture both of these cities. Now, with that being said, I continue to say this is going to be a very hard nut to crack, both in terms of taking control of the cities and maintaining control of these fairly large urban areas with vast hilly terrain around both of these cities, and given the distance between each other, again you can look here just in terms of mile distance from the outskirts of one to the other is basically 3 miles. So it's almost, you can look at it as one city, so to speak. It could be defended as one such strategic asset, and it would be very difficult again for the TDF to actually seize control of this entire area and again actually defend it, especially if there is active resistance in terms of the local population that could be occurring inside of the city as well. But again, a fairly significant, I don't want to say fairly significant, but an air base is present. Losing that air base, depending on the activity that is being conducted in that air base, would be a very heavy loss for the Ethiopian state. Again, they're probably flying in supplies and other equipment directly into this air base. So this is probably now a fairly significant supply hub for the Ethiopian federal forces. But again, it would appear the TDF is very close to this city, possibly has actually probed it and entered it on at least one occasion. There continues to be reports trickling in that, in fact, the city had capitulated, but again, it's just too early to call that. There continues to be fighting. There continues to be airstrikes by the Abiy loyalist forces north of Dese. There also continues to be fighting a little bit further north as well, with against pockets of ENDF forces that have not yet surrendered north of Dese. And when I mean have not yet surrendered, that's a good segue into kind of what occurred over the past 8 days in terms of loss of forces by the Ethiopian military. So the Tigrayan Defense Forces are reporting that they have caused a significant destruction in terms of the operational capacity of the Ethiopian military. And they are reporting, they meaning the Tigrayan Defense Forces, tens of thousands of wounded and KIA in terms of federal B loyalist losses. The losses that are being reported are on the magnitude of basically an entire corps uh, being completely defeated and destroyed, especially with some of these numbers that are coming out. They also report that 1,400, I believe, was the number of prisoners of war that were taking by the TDF. But again, the magnitude of the losses suffered by the federal forces are just incredible at this point. And even if it's half of those numbers that have been reported, let's say it's just half of that number. Again, a very significant loss for the Ethiopian federal forces in terms of maintaining any sort of continued operations, especially in the Desce-Kombolcha front. Now, these losses were also not just the losses that took place within the environments of Desce, but it was also from the fighting near Gashina as well. Our understanding that the move towards Gashina also suffered tremendous casualties on the part of the Ethiopian federal forces, the Abiy loyalists that were attempting to push up along the B-22 highway. And then thirdly, the operations near Shifra as well. And that also was included in some of those casualty estimates as well. So it was really three different places where some of these casualty reports were coming from. But it was in the magnitude of again around anywhere from 30 to 60,000 being reported over the last 8 days. So getting my head around that number is a little difficult. Is it accurate? Unsure of yet. Is it possible? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not. In other conflicts in the past, those kind of casualty figures have been caused by war, so it wouldn't be something that would be out of the ordinary for such a large-scale conflict as we're seeing here. But again, if even half of those casualties were sustained by the Ethiopian federal forces, the Abiy loyalists, the Amhara militias, I can understand why the Tigrayan Defense Forces would be claiming that most of the combat capacity of the federal army has been degraded and or destroyed. And some of that percentages was up to about 70%, depending on some of the reports that you were hearing. In other news, there also appears to be operations taking place in western Tigray. There appears to be fighting occurring and ongoing, possibly between forces of the despotic regime inside of Eritrea. As we know, Eritrean forces are occupying western Tigray along with Amhara regional militias, and it would appear that some of the operations were west of the Tigray River, which would indicate possibly some sort of offensive operation by the Tigrayan Defense Forces, possibly in a preemptive counter move to head off any sort of localized Eritrean army offensive that could take place within the vicinity of western Tigray. We continue to watch the border areas of the northern border of the Tigray region. Again, we continue to hear about a buildup of Eritrean forces in this area, and we continue to watch what is occurring. Is it possible that the Eritrean army, as the Abiy loyalists become more and more desperate, could they make a move south into the Tigray region again? It is possible. However, I believe it is unlikely as of the defeats that the Eritrean army suffered inside of the Tigray region, and the cost versus benefit for the Afwerki regime would probably be higher than what it is actually worth to enter the Tigray region again, and they would have to do so in fairly overwhelming force, commit themselves to large-scale conflict, which is both costly and it's something that the despot Afwerki may not wish to do, as it could weaken his position in Eritrea, especially if there are defeats like there were earlier. But we'll continue to monitor that situation and report. And lastly, we have received information that some of the targets, again, by the Ethiopian Air Force within the area of Mekelle, again, was the Planet Hotel, and that was to allegedly target some sort of communication systems that were being utilized within that area by the general staff of the Tigrayan Defense Forces. But again, the Ethiopian Air Force continues to be active, dropping for the most part dumb bombs. These airstrikes are for the most part fairly ineffective unless they're able to engage large columns on open roads. And again, the accuracy is not very good. It would appear that they missed their target near the Planet Hotel when they conducted that operation yesterday as well. But again, we will continue to monitor the situation and report. Things are very fluid right now. We're really watching what's going on near Dese and Kombolcha, and if any new news occurs, we will definitely report it as soon as we can. Have a great day, everybody. I will talk to you soon.